Man, I'd love to hear the Miles Baker story. It sounds like, number one, you're a super hard worker, really talented with horses. You guys are making incredible horses. But where did it all start?
Man, I'm from Southwest Oklahoma, and my family had a grow yard there and about 1,000 mama cows, and I just liked cowboying. That's, I would say, still where my roots are. What I'm getting to do now is fun, and I love it. But my wife and I always talk about it. We're gonna retire driving around the feed truck, checking cattle, drinking coffee. You know, I like the cattle. I've always loved that, and so I grew up. I hate to say grew up because my family, they harvested wheat when I was a kid and had cows, but fewer cows. Both my grandpas always run cattle and stuff. And my dad probably had 100, 150 mama cows. And then we'd go on harvest all summer. So I was gone all summer long. But then when I was probably 10, 12, my dad quit harvesting and got heavier in the cattle. And so I don't know. I grew up liking the horses and had a passion for them, I guess, that I found out later. And then when I went to college and I started realizing that I guess I was going to have a job, I didn't really want to have a real job. So I just started calling myself a horse trainer. And luckily had a little raw talent, I guess, with the horse. And so got me where I'm at now. And I trained horses in Oklahoma for a while and took care of all the cattle stuff. My dad has a animal health company and, you know, sells cattle medicine to vets and feed yards and stuff. So he did that, and I took care of all the cattle and trained horses when I got done taking care of cattle, and used the horses to doctor, and then started training them for Trevor. And that's what brought our partnership on. And I wouldn't say Trevor was like I guess you could say like a tool that God used in my life to help me get to another level, because my life drastically changed when I started doing stuff with Trevor. Like I got to a whole level, different level, spiritually, financially, everything. And so Trevor definitely was like a gateway to helping me change my life, but it was certainly God using him in my life, you know. And so I always credit God to every good thing that I've had happen to me. And looking back, it's funny now because like I was so content with cowboying. Like I just loved cowboying. I like being, to this day, I like just being around good hands. And I don't mean good tie down ropers or good team ropers. Like I respect both sides of, you know, it's everybody always thinks it's like rodeo versus day working cowboys. Like I respect both sides of it, but I love being around good cowboys and going and pinning cattle and seeing how a good hand like reads a cow. You know, you're pinning cattle, they're trying to run you over or whatever, and seeing an actual good hand like reading cattle and turning them and stuff. And I grew up with my dad yelling at me, you got to know what the cow is going to do before the cow knows what it's going to do, you know? And so I like cowboy stuff. And now looking back at where my life's gone, it almost seems like a fairy tale. Like I didn't know that I could make the living I've been able to make with a rope and a horse, you know, but it seems like God always has a way. So I'm just a walking testimony of God's goodness, really.
Did y'all really, I mean, that many cows? I mean, I'm sure you did have, I mean, you just had to use horses.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, what sort of performance level was involved, or was it just strictly for work and ranch?
It was work and ranch. Like my dad started team roping when I was in high school with some of his buddies, and it was really just a opportunity for them to drink beer, and they could, you know, do a little team roping while they drink some beer, and and just enjoyed it. And so I was around it. I roped calves really when like junior high rodeos and stuff. I roped calves more than anything. And my first head horse was my good calf horse. And everybody around where we were at, team roping and drinking beer go a lot better than roping calves and drinking beer. So team roping was the route everybody went. And I just started team roping on my calf horse, and he made a good head horse. And then eventually I quit roping calves. There wasn't anybody else around there that did it. I had a neighbor up the road, John Phelan, and he's a great horseman. He was a inspiration to me growing up because he could do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like he could, make his horse lay down for him to get on it and stuff. And like, it intrigued me because he was always doing something wild like that. And he roped calves. And so once he got past the point of him roping calves, I didn't have anybody to do it with. So I started team roping, and I got to college. I tell everybody, I think when I got to college, I was a number 4 roper. I just did it for fun. And 90% of the roping I'd done was in the pasture, doctor and wheat pasture cattle or whatever. And looking back, like I handled the rope good, but I wasn't like these kids that are 16, 17, 18 now going to jackpots 3 days a week, roping for money. Like I just didn't. I thought the only roping I cared about was ranch rodeo. And I'm like, if someday we ranch rodeoed all the time. I was like, if someday I'm the guy that gets to rope the cow, like that's like where I want to be in my roping, where it's like, hey, you're the one. We're at Amarillo at the finals, you're dragging or you're roping the cow. I was like, that was like the threshold of where I wanted to get with my roping. It wasn't like I thought I was going to make a living actually roping competitively. And so I probably didn't have my sights set high enough at that point, but I got to college and got around some guys that roped real good, and competitive nature took over, and I started getting better, and I started circuit rodeoing, and I made the circuit finals. I think I've made it like five times. The last year I won the circuit finals, got to go to the NFR Open, and that's been the extent of my actual rodeoing, and I just enjoyed it because it was like I'd wake up and check cattle, doctor cattle all day, and rope in the evenings, ride some young horses, and then on Friday and Saturday you're ready to get away from the ranch, and so it's like go to a few rodeos. So I'd go to a couple circuit rodeos on the weekend, and I had a blast doing it. Guys text me all the time like, hey, let's enter the San Antonio qualifier, or try to get into Houston. And I'm like, how far is the drive? It's like, it's 3 hours. And I'm like, it's kind of out of my circle,
Yeah.
And it doesn't get me excited. I'll go to Vegas to the World Series finale, because if you go out there and you do decent, I mean, you can win real money. And so I'll go do that stuff, but the rodeoing bug just doesn't get me. I love the horse side of it. So showing up and getting beat by somebody that can ride a $6,500 donkey and just rope around them, I don't like that as much as I do showing up on a good horse at the futurities and being proud of what I'm riding. That's about how my jackpotting goes. If I have a horse I'm really proud of, like if I have a really good young hill horse that I like, I'm proud of him, I'm like, let's go jackpot. If I don't have a horse that I would just get excited to ride, I'd just soon stay home and ride a 2-year-old,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is that how the training deal started? Is like you were just cracking out 2-year-olds for people?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the fact that you had some experience actually rodeoing.
The roping helped, but I think one thing that got my deal started with Trevor was he could drop a horse off as a 2-year-old and pick it up as a 5-year-old. And when he picked it up or pick it up as a 4-year-old, when he picked it up as a 4-year-old, it was a finished rope horse. And like I had broke it, got it riding, used it outside, doctored cattle, went to the arena, and like I could just do steps 1 through 10 by myself. It wasn't like, hey, this guy's good for 6 months, and then it needs to go to this guy, and then to this guy. Like I could just do it all.
When was the first time you did that for Trev?
He retired in 18, and I had sold him a few horses and did some horse trades with him. When I was in college, I had a really good mare that at the time was more horse than I could ride, and he bought her from me. Actually, we did a little trading. I had just kind of started wanting to rodeo a little bit, and he had an old horse that he had rodeoed on that needed some maintenance, and it was a good trade. I had one that I couldn't really ride that he needed. And he had one that if I wanted to get better at roping, I needed that one at the time. And so I always joke with him still that I'm like, how did I trade you a sound horse that you could go rodeo and win on for a crippled 15-year-old, you know? But he told me that day, he was like, hey, I'm way ahead on this trade on it from a monetary standpoint. But if you have goals and want to get better at roping, you need a horse like this to do it on. And sure enough, like that horse, I mean, I probably, every dollar I won on him, I probably spent it in vet bills. But the first 2 years I made the circuit finals was on that horse. And when I got that horse, I was a straight 5 header. And when I sold him, I was a 7 header. And like the horse really was what I needed. And so I knew him good enough that, and like if he seen me, I remember we were at the Bridgeport was co-approved for the Prairie Circuit. So I went to that rodeo and he was in the stands. It was the year of the ERA. And he's like, hey, what are you doing later? And I was like, well, I'm in Mineral Wells tonight. All those rodeos were that same week. And he's like, well, come over to the house and hang out. So I go over there and it was just me and him. We went and ate lunch and I roped with him. And he just kind of followed me. Like he would text me every once in a while, you got any horses around there? Because he knew what I was doing. I was making horses one way or another because we were using them. And I just kind of become friends with him. Well, the night that, I think in 18 when he retired was when he gave the interview. I call it a famous interview. It's famous to me because he was talking about what he had to do to win the all-around title that year. Something had to go right. I can't remember, but he was talking about if he was spiritually mature enough if it didn't go right for him to accept it, you know. And it went right. He won the world and everything, but he started crying in that interview. And I remember that interview and I watched it that night. So I texted him and I said, congrats on a great career or whatever. You know, you were more than just a rodeoer. Like you were a inspiration, you know, to people in their walk with Christ or whatever. And he texted me back. He just texted me back. I wish I still had the text. He just texted me back and said, come see me. That was all he said. And so I don't know how long it was, but I went down and roped with him again, and he started sending me some horses. And I think it was probably in 2021, he sent me a 3-year-old mare that was just halter broke. And I got her like in August or something of her 3-year-old year, broke her. And then the next year, he just would leave me alone. He knew I was doing my job. He didn't bug me, didn't ask for videos. I'd send him stuff every once in a while. And I used this mare. I mean, looking back now, it's crazy some of the stuff I feel like we did on them because they're worth so much now. I'm like, golly, I can't believe I rode them, but it made good horses, and I'll stand by that.
It's such a double-edged sword.
It is, man, but I got just enough. I don't know if it's cowboy in me or Okie in me or one, but I could be on $1 million stud, and if something jumps fence, we're headed to the stock. Like,
yeah.
And so he sends me this mare, and the next year the futurity at Fort Worth rolls around. I'm like, hey, can I show this mare? He's like, show her. Like, we literally broke her 12 months ago. What are you talking about showing her?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, she's good enough. Like, I want to show her. I hadn't got to show anything before. Like, the futurities were starting to hit pretty good, and I wanted to be a part of it, you know, because I showed her, but then that next year when he and I had kind of actual string of show horses, I would go lope horses for him at the futurities, and I didn't show. I loped horses, helped him get ready, and had them ready for him, and he won, and it was great because I was getting half the money. Like, I owned half the horses, and I'm like, hey, I'm making money. I literally have Trevor Brazile as my jockey. Like, how do you beat that? And so, but I wanted to get to show some too. I had aspirations to, like, man, I see these guys doing this. I can do it. And anyway, I asked him if I could show that mare. He's like, are you sure she's ready? Like, he's like, all right, well, if you want to enter her, you can keep what she wins. And looking back now, I'm like, that was his way of saying, like, I don't got quite enough faith in you to split the fees with you, but if you want to pay the fees, have at it. And so anyway, I won third at the futurity on that mare that year. And that was the first one that he sent me just started, you know. Mm-hmm. And we got to the point where I had 7 or 8. It was a day about like it is outside right now. It was raining, and he texted me and said, is it raining up there? And I said, yeah, I'm rained out. And he said, well, bring them horses down. And I take the horses down, just kind of do a show and tell. I got there after lunch and showed him all the horses, and he rode them around. Only one of them reared up with him. It was funny because Super Looper was.
If you like your legs covered whenever you're riding, rodeoing, ranching, or dancing a jig at the honky tonk, I hope you'll go to rockandrolldenim.com and use code DALE for 15% off. These are the only jeans I've ever worn, and they're the only jean I'm ever gonna wear. Rockandrolldenim.com, old son.
He was heeling one on this horse, and a guy had given the horse to Treston. It was a free horse. Everybody knows a free horse is never free. So Trevor's like, hey, take this horse, see what you can do with it, but like, it's crazy. This thing's nuts. And so I cowboy it around, and I get it to where like a pretty good hand could catch it and saddle it and ride it and rope on it, but it wasn't for the faint of heart. I mean, it pawed me multiple times. I tried to put back boots on it one time. It kicked me across the yard. Like, it was just an outlaw. And I told him, I was like, it's pretty good to heel on, but it's feely. And I was like, take your spurs. I hate to tell a real cowboy to take his spurs off, and take your spurs off. So he does
especially
not,
that real cowboy.
He does not take his spurs off. And this horse, he heels one. He goes to the ground, starts to drag his butt. And then Trev, I guess, squeezed him with his feet. And like I warned him, let's take your spurs off. But this thing just goes airborne. Well, somebody was videoing, and Super Looper was down there. And Super Looper had to have the picture of this horse rearing through the air with Trevor. And Trevor's like, whatever y'all do, don't give the picture to Super Looper, you know? And so we didn't. But for the most part, other than that one, which we expected something crazy to happen with him, the horses were real good. And that day he hit me up. He said, hey, instead of me paying you to ride all these horses, why don't we start partnering on them? And I was like, man, I can't afford.
What year was that?
Oh, it's probably 22, I bet. And it's crazy how time flies. I bet it was probably 20 when I showed that mare for him. And then it would have been 21 when we started partnering on everything. And I was like, man, I can't afford to not get paid on these horses. You know, I always tell people, like, I didn't grow up with money. We had nice trailers. Like, you know, we had good ranch trailers and we had good pickups and stuff, but I come from just a bust culture. Like one of my grandpas is 82 or 3 this year and still runs 400 and something head of cows on his own. Doesn't have a hired hand. He still farms probably 800 acres of wheat. And if I remember last year, talked to my cousin. I went home. It was a pretty bad ice storm, and I went home to help and bust ice, and called my cousin. I said, hey, did you call Pop, see if he needs help? He said, yeah. I called him and said, hey, I'm done with my stuff. If you need help, I'll come help you bust ice. And my grandpa said, damn it, I already told you I don't need no help. And like, he's 80 something, you know, and he just doesn't. That's how everybody's wired in my family. And so I just come from a family of workers, you know. And so but I told Trevor, like, I don't have the money I can't not get paid every month. And so he said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll just, if you have the money to partner on a horse, we'll partner on it. If not, I'll buy it and I'll just pay you to ride it. And so perfect. Well, a few months go by and he calls me one day. He's like, hey, what do you have up there for horses? And I always had some that I would go buy for $5,000 or $6,000 and train them. And I think that's what made me a good horseman, because I didn't always. Now I start with the best product I can.
Yeah.
Like, it would be like if you were going to go street racing and you had the means to go start with a Ferrari, you're going to start with Ferrari. You're not going to go buy a Honda Civic to start with. And so now, with where I'm at in my career, there's an art to buying good horses, like seeing potential and knowing how to buy prospects and everything. And so I'm starting with the best product I can now. It wasn't always like that. I started with what I could afford, which wasn't much, and made good horses. And Trevor said, what do you got up there? And I said, man, I got this horse and this horse. I can remember the group of horses I had. And he said, well, bring them down and let me ride them, and I'll value them, and I'll give you whatever equity. So
dang.
So I took some horses down,
But by that point, he trusted you.
yeah,
You know, like y'all are already partners by this point. And then you trust him, like value him whatever you want.
Yep.
And you know that he's not going to dog you on him.
Yeah, no, he was fair. Like, we valued a couple of them at 60,000, and these are horses that I gave 6,500 for.
Yeah.
And I had them trained. They were good horses, and we valued them. And so it's like, he's like, okay, this horse is 60,000. I'm in on him at half. So you got 30,000 equity to use to this partnership. So we'd go buy something. I'd have a $30,000 credit. We would buy these horses, and like the equity on those horses that he gave me is how we started our partnership. And really that run into one of the first, probably the first big horse deal I was a part of that was a life-changing horse for me, I would say. I'd say the first, like, from a financial standpoint, the first life-changing horse was a stud we had. We called him Buckles. And we had the opportunity to buy this stud, and I didn't have the money. And so I told Trevor, I was like, man, I would love to do it, but I can't afford to do it or whatever. And he's like, well, let's go look at it. Something will work out. And he's always right. I don't get it. But so we go look at this stud. I want to do it. It makes perfect sense. This lady was getting out of the business, and this stud hadn't been marketed or anything. And like, great stud. It would be like buying a business that has like all the foundation laid, and you just got to take it and actually like get it going, you know? And so that evening after we looked at the stud, a friend of ours called and said, hey, my boy's going to the BFI. I've got to have a horse. His horse is hurt. So one of those horses that Trevor gave me the equity on that I had in Oklahoma, we sold that horse. Well, my part of that horse was how much I needed for my part of that stud.
Dang.
So we buy the stud the next day, own the stud for a couple years. Stud turned out to be a really good business model. He bred an X amount of mares at this certain stud fee, and like he proved over a 2-year period what he brought in a year. And you sell studs like as a business. Like, you can look at it and say, okay, this stud, this is what it costs to own this stud, to market the stud, to do all this stuff. He breeds this many mares at this much money. So it's like any business, you'll figure it based on their age. Like, okay, I'm going to buy them on a 4-year multiple or a 5-year multiple, depending on how old they are. So we sell that horse, you know, as a business. And that was the first time that like I had real money. Not real money to some people, but real money for a kid from Oklahoma. I was like, I can go put a lot of money down on a house or something, you know? And so my wife and I set that money back. And then we have a few more stud deals come up. And I'm so blessed to say this, but like I bought the land, I built my house, I paid off the land, paid off the house before it was all finished, had the money to do it, paid off all my vehicles. Like, dang. The studs did that for me when I was 31 years old, you know? And so just looking back at, really, it's funny. I've never broke the story down like that, but looking back to him calling and saying, what horses do you have up there? And I had, one of them I called Yellowstone. And then I had, I don't know if you probably know Dylan Crumpler, but I went and bought some horses from Dylan Crumpler in Wichita Falls. And I bought them. It was 3 Red Roans, and I called them Lil John and the East Side Boys. And so I didn't have the East Side Boys no more. They didn't work out, but Lil John worked out. And that was one of the horses. And those horses turned into more horses. And it's really cool looking back. Like I said, it's kind of a fairy tale for me because I was just doing what I enjoyed, and I was getting to cowboy and make good horses and had fun doing it, you know. The only fun I didn't have with Lil John one time is I let my wife ride him outside, and we had a coyote problem on this place around a mountain. And so I was like, hell, we'll get a few donkeys, put them out there. They'll run the coyotes off. Well, the donkeys run my wife off on Lil John. And I was on a 2-year-old that had about 30 rides, and I can remember my wife running down the side of the mountain. I shouldn't laugh, but the donkey chasing her, Lil John is hauling, and she's screaming at me to do something. And I'm two-handing my colt around on the side of a mountain. I'm like, I can't, I'm sorry, but I can't help you, you know?
Yeah.
And so anyway, this is quite the experience, but it,
Time to go donkey hunting.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I don't know. There's just guys people that come along, and Trevor called me to do. Well, I was at the party watching the Kid Rock
yeah.
announcement deal in Vegas like 3 years ago, and I'm like walking in, and I get a call from Trevor, and I was like, because I didn't know what I was going into. We all thought Kid Rock was going to play.
Yeah.
And I'm messaging his security guard. And so we're just going to go hang out. And so I walk in and I get a call from Trevor, and it's super loud. And I was like, well, I better answer this. And he was like, hey, and he was somewhere loud. Where what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm in Vegas at this deal. And anyways, and he was like, do you want to be assistant coach for this thing, Kid Rock? And I was like, well, I'm at a Kid Rock deal now. And
Yeah.
anyways, and I asked another question, and then I was like, it's Trevor. Like, just say yes.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is. Like, yeah, sign
Bound
me
to
up.
win.
Sign me up. Like, I'm, if you, whatever you're doing, I'm in, And anyway, then it turned out like I was at the announcement party. That's what they were doing. And now all of a sudden I'm an assistant coach
Yeah.
at it. It was just this funny deal. And we ended up, they've had 2 of them, and I don't think they're going to have one this year, but, and it worked out. It was just a fun little side gig for Trevor. Like, it wasn't, this big deal. Didn't take up a lot of time. We had to go to Nashville once and then go to the rodeo twice. But, I say that to say, that's my mentality. I think it should probably be anybody's mentality. Your deal took a little bit more faith, having to step out with money and giving up. But on the other hand, like there's also just like, yeah, man, there's some wagons that you just
Get on.
are okay to hit yourself to.
Yeah. No, it's been good. And like I said, he's certainly allowed God to use him in his life and to reach other people, and it's been good for me. I mean, I was always the Lord changed my life in 2009 when I was in high school. I would think I was a junior in high school, and so I had been on that path. But it's just like anything else in life. If you're an average golfer and you get around people that golf real good, you're going to be a better golfer. And I got around Trevor, and it elevated every part of my life, and now my dad and I are really close, and he always tells me that I got, my house is literally 200 yards from Trevor's house. I got my land and my house is right there by him. And my dad always tells me that, like, Dad and I are still buying land back home and growing all that, using the cattle to pay for land. And we got to a point, my dad and I as partners on our cattle stuff, where when we got our cattle paid for, we started using cattle to buy land. And that deal's been really good up there. And we're still proactively buying land and stuff. And I always tell my dad, I'm like, I feel like a terrible partner because I'm never up there, And he's like, man, you're where you need to be. And,
Yeah, for sure.
And my wife and we've got 2 twin boys that are 11 months old now, and it's just I'm in a good spot. I'm around good people, and I've got a really good partner on the horse side of stuff, and I've got a really good partner in my dad on the cow side of stuff. And my dad, he's like, you're where you need to be. Stay there.
It's all right to, I think you got to be, in this industry, you got to be creative, to really make it work. You can, now don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a dang thing wrong with just trotting in circles on $4,500 horses.
Yep. No, I love it.
For $1,000 a month, get you 10 of them, and which sounds like a lot of money on paper to all those listening, but as you know, like, it's just, that's a hard way to make a living.
It is.
But my point is, like, or just day working, or, but But if you want to, like, you got to have a side hustle or get creative, I think.
100%.
Talking to guys.
Trevor and we've been talking to Treston about that because Treston's about to be 18, and I mean, life happens fast, and he's roping good, and we were telling him, hey, like, you got to be gamey about stuff, like be able to buy horses and make them better while you get closer to your goals. Be able to buy some horses and make them better and sell them, or be a good enough hand. There's a lot of people that rope really good that they devalue horses the minute they get on them,
Yes.
And like
That'd be me.
well, like Trevor,
I made a video once, how to screw up a good horse before lunch.
We've all done it. But yeah, like you said, you've got to be creative about how to make it. And I think most people love the industry enough that they're willing to be creative, or they're not in the industry very long. But I mean, it's been that way in my life. Like, yeah, sometimes you're like, all right, it doesn't really make sense. So how am I going to make this work?
Yes.
And if you love it enough, I guess you find a way. And I still don't know how I've done it. So I give all the credit to God, because what I've been able to do doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I've lived it. I look back and I'm like, how the heck did that work? And like I said, start realizing that God, as long as you're pursuing what he has for you in life, that he has a way, and he's faithful, man. He's been good to me, and I've learned a lot from watching guys like Trevor, how to get more out of life,
I think the thing and the way that God sometimes blesses people is with opportunities. Kind of like that story that you had with the stud. Like, well, let's just go and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what y'all had been doing. You're working. You're getting this horse. You get the $6,500 horse, and you're riding it. And then you go jump in this partnership with Trevor, and then you go over here, and then lo and behold, God blesses you with an opportunity to sell that horse.
Yep.
But you're moving.
Yeah.
My dad would say, like, God's going to take care of the bird, but the bird gets out of the nest.
Yeah.
He gets every day. He's not sleeping
100%.
in. And so, like, when you're getting out and the blessing is the opportunity. And
Yeah.
I think so many times in life, like, we're all looking for the fish when God blessed us with a fishing pole,
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't know. It seems like that's what the little I've talked to Trevor about you. It sounds like one thing that you seem to have is a work ethic.
Yeah.
You're a morning person?
I get rolling. I've been not as good here lately because my boy wakes up about I should say boy. One boy sleeps, one boy doesn't.
Yeah, they're never. I hear twins are never on the same schedule.
No, but like 5 to 5:30, he gets up. So I still get up, but used to I got up with my feet moving, and it's honestly been good for me because if I get up at 4:30, used to I just hit the ground running. I was going, and now I get up and I wait for him to get up. So I get up and I drink coffee and I read, and I realize like how much it slows my day down from the beginning. And when I walk out of the house, I'm not racing and trying to beat the day. Like I've just, I guess, calmed down a little bit because my dad he's wired. He's going 90 all the time, and that's how I've always been. And so the last few months of having kids for the first time, it's been kind of nice because I still get up early, but I wait for him to wake up, hold him, read the Bible, and then let my wife sleep a little bit. And when she gets up, pass him off and get out of the house. But I am a morning person. I like to get going and just getting after it, just working. I'm proactive. I always feel like as long as I'm moving and working and putting the work in, like God has something for me, but I've got to get out there and earn it, And
yeah, that's it. That's what I'm saying. God'll provide some type of.
Yeah, and it's really a pet peeve for me because I hear people all the time, well, God's in control. It's God. If it's God's will, I'm like, open your Bible. Like it says He has plans to prosper you. Plans to not harm you, plans to give you a future. But it doesn't say He's going to do it for you. Like if you read and study His promises, He says what He has for you. Like on earth as it is in heaven. We all know, we all have this image of what heaven is, and it's good. God wants good for us on earth too. And that's His will for us. It's not to lay down and let life run you over and be like, well, I guess it was God's will for me to be broke, or be negative, or, man, I just feel like people are so fast to lay down and be
a victim.
Be weak-hearted, and like it's just it's a weak mentality, like God's laid it out there for us to go get, like go get it. But at the same time, like there's an adversary, the devil. I tell people, like everybody thinks God's in control on earth, and the devil's here. The devil's ruling the earth. And I was actually just reading, I think in the book of Matthew, and it talks about the devil taking Jesus up on the highest mountain, and it says he showed him all the kingdoms and their glory, and said, if you'll worship me, I'll give you all this. Well, if the devil doesn't have power on this earth, how's he going to give Jesus the kingdoms on earth? Like he offers those kingdoms to Jesus if he'll worship him. And so I say that to say, like, people think that God's in control all the time. Like no, God's put it out there, but you're in control of your own life. Like if I walk over the door and I got power and authority to go slam my head on the door, like that's not God's will for my life. That'd just be out of my own ignorance. You have free will. Open your Bible, learn what God has for you, and go get it. God's not gonna. Is he the king? Yeah, He is. Does He have all the authority? Yes. Do we have to go get things on our own? Yeah. It's not God's will for us to be lazy,
Yeah.
I went into that spill there. I didn't mean to go to church right there, but I've been reading, and I don't know why that's been on my heart, that people are like, well, if it's God's will, it's not God's will for somebody to lose their child, like it's not God's will for people's lives to end early, or people to be broke living under an overpass, that's not His will,
Yeah.
The devil's alive and well, it says he's roaming the earth seeking to devour, and it says the enemy is set to steal, kill, and destroy. And I try to tell people that. I'm like, if it steals from you, or if it kills, or if it destroys livelihood, that's not God. That's not God's will. That's the devil.
Yeah. It's such a deep issue, because it's, free will and God's sovereignty. God is in control, but He gives us free will, because if He just like made us all robots, what's the point? And then what is the point? Yep. Why wouldn't we, but He gave us this chance to make decisions. He gave us this opportunity. I don't know. The fact that free will and God being in control both exist is, to me, I feel like a kid, and like when a parent tells a kid, like, no, you can't have candy every meal, or this is why you can't, as a 3-year-old child, go drive that tractor. Like, they don't understand that, But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's not true. The parent understands. And the fact that free will and God being in control both can exist at the same time, to me, just because I don't fully understand how they can coexist, that doesn't mean that God is not all powerful. It doesn't mean that God is not all loving. But I do believe that and it's one of those questions that, the church strives to answer for somebody who's having a hard time wrapping their mind around Christianity. But I agree with you 100%. Just like, and my dad trying to simplify it for the, he is going to take care of the birds of the air.
Yeah.
But the bird's got to get out of the nest.
Yeah.
And so like we have a role, like we've got to go and do and work, and God created us to work 6 days, as a matter of fact, you know, and then we get to rest on number 7. And I think a lot of people, they do have this gold pot at the end of the rainbow. Like, I'm going to get to this point where I never have to work again. But like, to be, I think that might make a person more miserable, And so like, if you get out and you go and you do and you start moving, then I think that's where.
Anytime I try to stop moving, it just eats. I like Sundays. Everybody's like, "Do y'all rope on Sundays? Y'all take the day off?" We always take the day off until somebody gets bored.
Yeah.
Then we get going again, But I think it's good to be proactive, man. You got to be moving. You got to be working, and just like I said, I think God has a lot for all of His people. Mm-hmm. We just, not everybody goes and gets it, and being around somebody that, I think that's why Trevor's been such an example, because what he did in the amount of time that he did it, and then retired when he was still a contender. And it's almost a fairy tale career. So you're like, all right, well, how did he do that? And then you ask him how he did it, and he'll give credit to God, and he'll give credit to being obedient to God's laws, like tithing, And so when I got around him, and I was like, all right, this guy's not that cool, No, he is, but
underwhelmed.
But I was like, all right, how was he so successful? How did he turn rodeoing into, an empire, more or less? And it was like, okay, well, if he says it was because of God, then I was already a follower of Jesus. But I was like, all right, well, I'm not getting the most out of it, I don't guess, because my life, am I going to heaven? Yeah. Has my life changed, really? Not really. Like, I mean, I'm not driving a Rolls Royce through town, like nothing changed drastically. And so I was like, all right, well, if it's different for him and he gives the credit to God, then there's got to be something I'm missing, and it's just like boils down to, like I said, I think God has more for people than they realize. But I also would say that, and I think you would agree, like a lot of times God has more for people than they're willing to work for too, Like, I mean, somebody could say, hey, I could make you a millionaire in the next 2 years, but you've got to do this, and you write down a list of what they have to do. I think you'd be surprised at the people that aren't willing to do what it would take. Like, that's a lot of work. I'm pretty good where I'm at. I'm comfortable. I'm just going to stay where I'm at. That looks like a lot of work. It's probably the same with if you wrote down how much honoring God and, living by His principles and being in the Word and understanding it, how much that could change somebody's life. And then you show it to them, and that looks like a lot of work. I think I'm good where I'm at. I'm going to heaven someday, But, and I get it that, power to you. I just want more, Yeah,
it's funny you say that. A couple of years ago, one of the bullfighters that made the NFR, his name was Nathan Harp, and I was talking to him, and he had his pro card, I think, for 10 years. I was like, man, I wonder how many people you ask, like, you can do it, you're going to make it, but it's going to take you 10 years of just steady grinding, getting hooked by bulls, trying to get this rodeo, get that right, and then finally you're going to make it after 10 years. How many people would still do it? Obviously Nathan did, Nate Dogg, but no, that's a good point. Like, God's got something in store for you. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more work.
Yep, for sure.
What have you, what about your horse training and the way you view horsemanship has changed since you started spending time around Trevor?
I was around like COWBOYS. And so I could put a 30-day mash on one as good as anybody, have them riding and ginning and stuff. And then I kind of had an interest in like a more, I guess you'd say, refined way of doing stuff. And so I started to really dig into the cow horse stuff and study those guys and what they did, and then had a real interest in the reiners. There was less control on the reiners, like is more have them so trained that you can set your hand down and still have to communicate with them in other ways than picking up the bridle reins. And so like my mind would probably get off in the weeds too much on like studying how to do things, but I just experimented. I really probably just ruined horses for a little bit trying to learn.
Ever since I started riding bulls and punching fools, I've been wearing an American hat because I'm an American. I actually wore a different hat before that for the longest, but then my mom got a job. So wear an American hat, old son. Otherwise, you ain't no cowboy. Hey, Bro-tater Chip, if you like getting swole-o-matic, then get yourself some Protein on mountainops.com. Hey, or if you just like being healthy, whether you're trying to bulk up, get healthy, have energy, go to mountainops.com and use code Kevin for 20% off.
Stuff. But when my deal started with Trevor, I wasn't even roping much. I would have one good rope horse and go to some circuit rodeos. But for the most part, I was starting 2-year-olds, and I had the long-term goal to do the cow horse stuff. And I had started going to some ranch versatility stuff and showing, getting to box and go down the fence and do the reining patterns. And what I was doing was working my way up to where I could go show cow horses. That was what I wanted to do. And I got around when the deal with Trev come up, it was probably more of a business decision than anything, because all of a sudden I could make a better living doing the rope horse deal than I could doing the other deal, and so all of a sudden I got back in pretty heavy on the roping. And like I said, roping was never at the forefront of what I cared to do. It was about the horses. But doing it with Trevor, roping it was a byproduct of, And so when I got around him, I started realizing I could get him to stand good and run to the cow and make a good move and do all the stuff and look good doing it, like to where the general public's like, wow, like that horse is good. Well, I might just have 30 days on him, and I could put 30 days on one, and I had enough of that cowboy background in me. I could get a horse to really do about whatever I wanted him to and make it look good. And then I got around him, and it was the coolest thing, because it was basically like, hey, all this stuff, pointless. Like, if you can't win on them, it's pointless. And so, like, I look back now, and all the tools that I had, I know he's seen talent and seen work ethic and all that stuff to want to partner with me. But I look back and I'm like, the stuff I was doing on head horses then, or in heel horses, he was like, throw all that out the window, because it's pointless. And so I kind of learned, I guess, for lack of better terms, the things that were practical and realistic to a guy like him that won that much. It was pretty neat to be like, okay, I'm not just training them. Like, anybody can train them, but are they training them to be great horses, And so when I got around him, I got to learn, like, hey, this is what matters and doesn't matter. This is how you win. This is going to help you win 26 gold buckles. This is just looks like that.
What part was looks?
Pointless. I could put a big move in the turn on a horse where it looked like he was just dragging his butt and making this big move. Well, it didn't have any longevity. Like, when you start standing up in your right stirrup and reaching, that big move's going to feel really pointless when that sucker disappears under your left leg and ducks, and you can't dally, or you can't handle a cow good, to set him up. In Trevor's situation, like for, Patrick, kind of, you
got to baby him along.
Yeah, you got to take care of Patrick. And so anyway, just stuff that was like, there's no longevity in that. They've got to, when you expose yourself, they got to keep running under you. They've got to stay around your left leg. There's things that might not look as fancy, but it's practical. And then we start going to all these futurities and jackpots. And Trevor, I'm glad that I'm partners with Trevor because I'm getting half of the money that he's taken from everybody else. And when he takes my money, I'm at least only losing like half of it, and I'm getting some of it back, because he's kicking my butt too. And so it's kind of like sparring or anything else. If the people you're around all the time can just completely kick your tail, then you're going to get better a lot faster. And that's certainly been the case for me the last 3 years because it's like, it'd be like getting to spar with Floyd Mayweather in his prime. You just got to get good.
Yeah.
I don't go to town once a month and get my butt kicked and realize that I need to get better. Like I can get it every day, and it sure expedited my learning curve,
What is first team roping NFR in Heelan?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and then he switched to heading because somebody told him he couldn't head good enough. So Shadow's like, I never wanted him to quit healing. I loved when he healed, and somebody told him he didn't head good enough to make the finals, and he just quit healing and started heading.
Swapped him up.
Yeah.
So whenever he's turning steers for you, how much quicker did you get better with him being able to just give you like instant feedback?
Way better. Like I when I did,
because y'all are trying to make horses, but then also he can say, "Oh yeah, and by the way, you need to change this, this, and this."
He's really not that fast to tell you stuff. Like there's been scenarios where he could have told me something 6 months sooner and life would have been a lot better, but he's like, well, you never asked. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, just tell me. If it's going to help me, I want to know, just tell me. But I was about to say, I only really headed. I could ride a hill horse or get a hill horse operating and give him some timing and have him stopping good, but I didn't really heel. Everything I did was heading. And so when I got down there, I had basically zero real experience or any past of trying to be a healer. And I went from a number 5 healer to a number 8 healer in 2 years. And for a 16-year-old kid that is at that stage in his life, that's not that impressive. When you're 29 or 30 and you've been roping a certain way your whole life, to trash every mechanic or every bad habit, throw them out the window, start over and try to relearn something to go from a 5 to an 8. And I honestly think it was less than 2 years is a pretty good feat. And like I said, I'm not out there on 20-year-old practice horses throwing in the swerve every day, working on my heeling. I'm riding 3-year-olds. So you're not getting real looks with real timing all the time. You're kind of sacrificing your roping to train a horse sometimes, or you're not getting to stay as sharp because you're riding green stuff that you don't get the best looks on. And so you can't always probably advance at a rate that you would like to when training's your priority versus roping, I guess.
Because it's all about the horse.
Yeah, I guess to say it better, if you had 4 or 5 practice horses and you didn't care how they were working, you're just like, just get me close enough to the feet I can heel. It's going to make your roping better faster than it's like, got to do it a different way.
I need to do this for my horse.
Yeah. And so I guess that progress that I had answers your question on how much it helped being around him, because he would just tell me sometimes like, that ain't gonna work. Even one time he even just told me you're not good enough. And so
Yeah.
It just is like he said it from a good place, but he's like basically, hey man, you just got to get better. And you know, when we got started, it was what your capabilities on a 2 and 3 year old are invaluable. Like that's what you're good enough. You're not good enough at this part of it yet. And so that told me what part of it I needed to work
But you're a
on.
good hang.
Yeah.
Yeah, he enjoys it. Like we can
Yeah.
cut up. You're a really good hang. I'll keep you
man.
around.
Keep you around. And I was like, all right, well, eventually he's going to find out that I'm not that cool. So by then I need to be better at what I'm not good
Caught
at.
up on the other stuff.
Yeah. And so, no, it was good. And then I was actually telling somebody this today. A guy come over and was roping, and we was just talking about our careers. He's kind of getting started in the futurity deal, and he's a real good hand, ropes real good. And he was like, what was the turning point for you, like when you realized you were good enough? And I said it was when Trevor had shoulder surgery, because we had some studs. Like we had the stud we call the dark side, and we had syndicated that horse. And I showed him the beginning of his 4-year-old year, did really good on him, did good enough that like it proved that we had a horse that was worth doing this syndicate on. So when we syndicate him, now all of a sudden we've got 50 other owners of this horse that are counting on the horse to win. Well, that adds a whole new pressure. And so I had Chris Littlefield used the horse, cowboyed on him and stuff, and then we got him. And when they get used outside, it makes the rope, and they're just better minded from it. And so the horse was at Chris's, and then we got him, and then I trained him in the roping, and then Trevor was showing him the end of his 4-year-old year, and then Trevor had shoulder surgery. But that horse was just an example of one that was a pretty, high caliber horse that needed to go win. Well, Trevor had to have shoulder surgery. He couldn't even throw good loops sometimes because of his shoulder was an issue, and I remember he won the AQHA World Championship on that horse we were talking about. And I remember, like, I know when Trevor throws a good loop. Like, I know when he puts extra on it. And I knew he was going to in the finals that night, but I knew how bad it hurt him to I guess you could say to put some sauce on it. Like, and he did that night in the finals, and I remember how bad it hurt him to put that much on his rope. And so that was in the 1st of November. And so December, he gets his shoulder fixed. Well, he's out for 5-6 months. And so it was like, here's this lineup of horses, like, get after it. And I had a kid that come and helped me. His name was Will Rector. And he brought some old practice horses and stuff with him, and he just roped with me every day. And for the first time, I had somebody that I hired to saddle horses and bring them to me, because I went from having me and Trevor to just me, and I still had the full barn of horses. So there was days I was riding like 21, 22 horses a day and still trying, like, the show season's coming up and I'm going to have to go win on these things. And really they have to win. Like, these people have invested in these horses and this program, and winning's the only option. So go win. And in the time that Trevor was out, I didn't have a plan B that year, and I won $400,000 from the time I started until he come back.
Dang.
I think won 5 of the first 6 futurities, and like kind of just went on a little bit of a rampage. And I just remember, like, there's no plan B. I'm in control, and I could write down a list of names of people. Oh, he's just on Trevor's coattail.
Right.
He's just where he's at because of Trevor. And when that time period come that Trevor wasn't there, I was like, okay, I have an opportunity to not go just do what Trevor and I've been doing, but I'm going to go do more, just so I can prove a point that I'm where I'm at for a reason. Like, I've earned it. I can be here. And so I was telling that guy today, I was like, I think that's when my confidence level hit a peak, because up to that point, I had Trevor to fall back on. Like, I mean, Trevor's going to win, and we're partners, and I'm training him at home and doing this stuff alongside of him, and I'm winning. The year before, I think I won a couple $100,000, and it was the first year that I was like, hey, I can do this, you know. But I always kind of had Trevor to fall back on, and then when he wasn't there, he didn't even come to the barn for a couple months. Like, he got on this women's college basketball rampage, and like he was just flying all over the place watching basketball, because like he enjoys it. His daughter's great at it, and they were going around watching basketball, and I had the horse program to myself, and I had to go win. And I think that little streak that I went on while he was out was a kind of a turning point for me, where it was like, all right, I can do this, you know. And I actually just seen it the other day. It was a deal. I had a really good mare have a freak accident, and we had to put her down, and somebody wrote an article about her, and in the article it stated that I was the winningest futurity trainer or rider of 2024, and I didn't even know that, but I got to looking at that, and I was like, man, that was a confidence boost for me when I didn't have him to fall back on. And then the end of the year, we had another stud, probably my favorite horse I've ever been around or got to ride. His name was Pride and Joy. We called him Kilo, and he just got done with his futurity year. With his futurity career, he aged out, but we won. Well, not we. Chris Dawson showed him in the cow horse, and he won $50,000 in the cow horse. And then we went and won, like, from the time we showed him till the time we got done was a little less than a 2.5 year period. And the horse won $435,000 in his career. And he was just a great horse. Well, we were getting ready to go to the AQHA World Show, and I was helping Trevor. Like, I'll help him. So if he's showing Kilo, if he's heeling, I head for him. And one cool thing about that horse was, I was thinking about it when we got done the other day. I've either been on his back or in front of him for every dollar he won, except for a few runs Treston rode him and Trevor headed for him. But of all that horse's money won in his roping career, I was either on him or in front of him heading for him. And so that it made that horse special to me. But we, at the AQHA World Show, Trevor's getting him ready, schooling him, everything. I'm roping with him. And then literally the day before we have to leave, he goes, hey, I'm going to go to a basketball tournament.
There you go.
He's like, you're up. And so I was like, perfect. Here we go again. I mean, I've been in this situation before, and I won the AQHA World Championship on that horse. And he just was like, you're up, you know. And it was just a good year, to where I think it gave me confidence that I was like.
That was at the end of that same year where he had that surgery?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
End of the same year. He come back and showed for 3 or 4 months, but he had kind of got in a habit, not a habit, but like he knew, like, he was like, hey, you don't got to have me there. You know, it's business as usual, whether I'm there or not. Now, I'd rather him be there, but he was like, you got this. And so AQHA World Show, it's really the only place where now there's other places that pay better, but that's the only place you can put like a world title on a horse. So like, you can call that horse a world champion if you win AQHA World Show. And so it's a big deal as far as credentials for a horse. And so I got to show that horse and win the world on him, and we just kind of retired him from his futurity career. And it's probably my favorite horse now.
Yeah. When did you move there?
So we had I was going down there and staying a bunch. I would go down and actually stay. Trevor's got extra bedroom on his side of the house where his daughter stayed. So she never stayed in her own bedroom. And so when I would go down there for probably a year, I slept in a pink Barbie bed.
Yeah.
And I would just, get up early and go start riding, and he'd do his family stuff and come down there. And so I stayed with him a lot over a year or two period. And then I was going back and forth like that. And I was in Decatur, and my wife called me one night and said there's a tornado about 20 miles away, and it's coming straight. Like the path they're showing on the news is coming straight at us. And I'm like,
Where at your home in Oklahoma?
Yeah. And I was like, it's 20 miles away. It won't make it. Just be watching it. Well, she calls and she's like, it's 5 miles away and hasn't changed. And I was like, well, can you see it? And it was at night, but it was pretty light. And she said, I can see it. And I said, well, if you can see it, get away. Like, if you can't see it, take cover. But if you can see where it's at, get out of there. She was like, no, I can see it. So she leaves and she goes back. Well, our place is cooked. I mean, it was leveled.
Really?
And I remember Trev and I were at NRS. We went and watched Treston that night, and we were headed back from NRS. And I've been with my wife long enough, like, she doesn't panic, but I know when something ain't right. And she called me and was like, you need to get home. And I was like, and so, but before that, when she called me and was like, hey, it looks like it's going to hit us, Trevor just pulls the truck over on the side of the road and he starts praying, speaking authority in Jesus' name that nothing will be harmed. And I had a lot of horses up there and leveled our place. There was huge trailers on top of barns, and then big 20-ton cake feeders 40 yards from where they were that were full of feed. Like, I mean, it was crazy. It's crazy what a tornado can do. Not a horse harmed. And so I truly believe that night, like, the reason there was nothing harmed was because Trevor pulled that pickup over and spoke the word over that place. And
dang.
So
that is gut wrenching.
Yeah. So I drive home that night. I get home, place is leveled. Don't know what I'm going to do.
How far is this from your family place?
I'm 2 hours and 20 minutes from Trevor's to my house.
Well,
like this is the headquarters of our ranch.
Okay. So this is your family's place.
This is my family's place. So, my mom lives at the headquarters. My mom and dad, they split up when I was in high school, but my mom still lives at the main house on the headquarters of the ranch. And my dad lives out close to where our feed yard's at, which is about 20 miles from our headquarters. I call it the headquarters. It's where I grew up. So when my wife and I come back from college and stuff, I built a barn house out there close to my mom where the roping arena and everything's at. And that's where I trained horses. And so that place gets leveled, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I get home that night. It's probably midnight, see the place, do what I can there. And I'm such in grind mode. Like, there's nothing I can do here. I just go back to work. So I get done there 3 or 4 in the morning. There's nothing I can do. I drive back. Well, it's 5 or 6 the next morning, and I'm just back to riding. And I remember riding there for a day or two and waiting on insurance to figure stuff out and everything. And I just remember riding in silence for a day or two. And like, Trev knew the weight that was on me because my place was gone, and it was just like a couple days of silence riding. And I go back home, help my dad. We had to gather some cattle and stuff, and I helped my dad. And the circuit finals was that weekend, and that was the year that I won the circuit finals. And so that was a little bit of sunshine in a dark place, but there really wasn't anything for me to do except move to Decatur because I couldn't train down there. So I load all my stuff up and I moved to Trevor's. There's a guest barn at the road for 8 horses. We had horses stuck in every hole on his place.
Dang, what a God's hand on the timing of it.
Yeah, so I moved down there and
It's like right at the gate, that little deal right at the gate when you turn in.
Yep.
That little spot.
I filled that up and I moved into the apartment. Preston Brown, that he's been with Trevor for a long time. He's family to us.
Yeah, I know Preston.
He had got with the girl that he's married to now, and
I know her too.
yep, they were living in town, and so the apartment was open. So Trev's like moving the apartment.
Shayla.
So I lived in the apartment for a couple years when my wife worked in Oklahoma. So she's in Oklahoma working, and I'm living at Trevor's working, and so we were apart. It felt like being in high school or college relationship again. I only got to see my wife on Saturday and Sunday, you know. But I was down there working, and we just built life down there, and my wife moved down there. And when she works for some real good friends of ours, does crop insurance and stuff, she told them I'm going to move to Texas, and I guess I'm going to have to quit y'all, you know, thanks for everything. And they were like, you're not quitting. You can work from there, you know, work remote. And so great opportunity for her. So she still works for them. And we live in Decatur, built our place down there. And so I've to answer your original question, I've probably been a full-time resident for 3 years in Decatur. And I don't know that, I mean, as long as Trev and I don't get sick of each other, I assume we'll be riding horses, way less horses than we're riding right now. But I assume we'll be riding horses together till we can't, because we're just, you'd think two people being around each other as much as we're around each other, we'd get burnt out. But man, it's such a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
That it's like I said earlier, we're just in a great spot, and everything.
Man, that's such a
out.
crazy, random fear in the pit of, I know my stomach, you know, you hear the tornado warnings and that and fires. Like, it's just,
I've got the worst of them, man.
I mean, obviously, Super Looper's fire was pretty devastating for y'all's circles.
Yeah, it was.
But you had another one?
Yeah. Yeah, I hate fire. Soup's deal. Trev and I just got done riding that day, and we seen smoke across the creek and hauled ass up there and kicked the doors in. And I mean, it was, I can remember Trevor's wife telling us, screaming at us, because it blew the windows out and smoke, and screaming at us to not go in because the house was already, it went up so fast when we was kicking doors in trying to get in, and you know, it wasn't going to matter anyway. The way it worked out, it was too late. But I saying I hate fires because the Burlington Railroad runs about 3 miles south of our headquarters, and from where the railroad runs to about 2 miles north of us, with my house in the middle, is where 70% of our land is. Well, 2 different times in my life that sparked a fire on the railroad and completely burnt all the land up, you know. And one time didn't lose cattle, but one time did. And man, I talk about doing some cowboying.
Did they make it right?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's
I'm sure it's not easy.
Long drawn out
Yeah,
deal.
yeah. It ain't like they come back over the next day.
By the time it works out, though, like everybody thinks like you're going to get this big settlement or something. You're like, gosh dang, I would have just liked to just had my grass and my cows.
Yeah. No. I believe that 100%.
Yeah, with the headache and stuff, it's not like
probably same thing with the insurance on the tornado deal.
Yeah, it's just, you just want life to be normal. Like it's not worth the headache. But I've got some of the best stories of my life cowboying come from having a fire at my back, because I can tell stories of, I had a horse that I rode. We moved cattle probably, I forget what it was, like 19 miles that day, trying to move them in front of the fire, and helicopters and everything. We're just trying to get cutting fence and getting cattle, and a 20-mile-an-hour wind at our back blowing the fire towards us. And just I rode that horse that day until he just laid down,
Dang.
and had cut himself up running through trees, and like just a horse that had no quit. And I'm like, I guess I like cowboying enough. I'm glad to know, like, I'm not just a team roper. Like I've felt horses far better than the rope horses that I'm riding today. I've felt horses that had no quit. They would just go until they were done. And then had a little fire on the backside of a mountain, one right outside of town, not on our land. I was just helping some buddies, but it was in a corner where two fences come together and a bunch of cedar trees. And I got the wind drafted around the backside of the mountain and burnt the fire back at me, and I was stuck back there. And so I'm fire on both sides in a 6-wire barbed wire fence, and I'm having to decide if I'm going to just leave my horse or what I'm going to do. And just in the nick of time, a fire truck comes around the corner of the mountain and cuts the fence, and I get out. And like, dang, I've got to rope cows. Cows are so stupid. It's no wonder we eat them, but like they'll just run to a fire, and I've got to rope them before they run into the trees on fire, And so it's like I get to rope cattle for a lot of money now, but roping something right before they get to die is like a different kind of pressure, You're
roping
like,
to save its life.
Yeah. And so like I said, I've got nightmares about fire and cattle and stuff, but I could tell stories all day about having the fire at my back, trying to not let a cow get back past you because it's going to die, And so I've got some pretty cool cowboy stories from the fires.
Yeah. Dang, I haven't had to deal with a lot of fire. They, the Panhandle, they had that one fire, and I helped them move stuff afterwards, but that's it.
That was a different kind of devastating, because there was, in the fires we had, there's not anybody around where we're at out there, and there's no lives lost or nothing. Cattle lost is bad enough, but you hear stories about them guys that lost their lives out there moving cattle. Man, it hits different.
Oh my gosh.
There's giving your life to the cause, or there's cowboying, and then there's cowboying and giving your life to the cause, and those guys are cowboys, man. Yeah.
Well, I do think there's a lot more, back to the Cowboys, to your point earlier, like I feel, at least in my circles, a lot of respect from the day work and just ranching cowboys towards rodeo cowboys. And I do seem to remember some people having the tension. I don't want to say animosity, but just like a little bit, maybe just pride.
Yeah. Like what I do is more cowboy than what you do.
Yeah. I think but like the guys I get to be around are humble enough about it where just like they would respect the crap out of like if a number 9 team roper showed up to help ranch that day, you know, or Trevor or yourself, you know, like just
I respect it so much, man. Like I said, I could go cowboy with Dusty one day and have just as much of a man, this is cool feel as I do roping with Trevor every day. You know, I just respect both sides of it. I say to this day, and I've got to do some. I mean, I've got to be in front of basically about every dollar Trevor's won on a hill horse out of futurity. I was in front of him heading for him, and it's cool looking back, like looking at his legacy. Like someday when you look back and you're like, man, that guy won X million on hill horses at futurities. Was like that guy was in front of him the whole time. And like just to be part of that story, like I get to do some cool stuff like that. But honestly, to this day, probably one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. Like I say cool, like the feeling it gave me inside was I got to be on Buster Welch's last ride, like gathering. I had a good friend, Shannon Hall, called me and said they're shooting a documentary about Buster, and he hadn't rode in a long time, and this will be the last time he gets horseback, but we're going to trot out and gather. It was a big place. I forget how big it was, but it was a big lease Buster had. We're going to gather it and bring them into the roundup and, drag calves and everything. And Buster's going to ride with us. And he was like, do you want to go? And I don't remember what I had going, but I was busy and it wasn't important enough to keep me from going.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just remember it being dark and being surrounded by good cowboys. And we got in the line and trotted out, and we were at the backside before the sun come up. And the only thing that wasn't real about it was there was camera crews there. And I just remember...
Which it can still be real with a camera.
Sorry. Yes, it can. But I remember coming down off the side of a bluff, and there was a cow and two calves, and I was just following them down off this bluff, and 150 yards that way, Buster easing down.
Yeah.
And I just looked over, and I was like, for the part of me that just loves cowboying, I was like, it's pretty cool, and so
I think the ranch rodeos have done a lot for that to bring. I mean, we should all get along anyway,
100%.
Without there needing to be. But I don't know. I think it's usually pride that keeps people in those circles from getting along. But I feel like now that that ranch rodeo has become even that much more popular, you do have guys that are number 9 team ropers and
cow hands.
Cow hands. Yeah. And so
I love it. We some buddies from mine back home that I would neighbor with, Dayton McPhail, I was around him a lot growing up, and he was sure enough a cowboy. I always told people, if you give him 3 or 4 good dogs and a decent horse, there's nothing that he couldn't pin. And he's just a good cowboy like that. And we went to the WRCAs together, and we made the finals, and we got to go out to Amarillo. And I just remember that those ranch rodeo finals carry as much weight to me as the NFR. And it's just, I guess, how I'm wired. I just like the cowboy stuff that much that, I mean, it'd be amazing to make the NFR, but I can't say that like inside of me would be any happier than it was getting to be out there and seeing my buddies that aren't bronc riders, that are just damn good cowboys, ride the stock that they show up with out there that are legit bucking horses. And I remember my buddy set the arena record one night, and he got beat up by this bronc, but he got beat up, but he didn't get bucked off. And I just remember hollering, throwing my hat and screaming. And I'm just like, man, that's like going 3-8 at the NFR for me. I just like the cowboy stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think the internet has helped too. But I was going to say,
making cowboy cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Or some of us never thought it wasn't. But, Chris Ledoux's got the song, you just can't see them from the road. Like there's always been cowboys, you just didn't know it. And I think now with the internet, just like that documentary you're talking about.
Yep.
Like as annoying as it may be, when you're out there, well, like some kid is going to watch that about Buster Welch, and he's going to see Miles Baker riding next to him, and he's like, man, I want that life.
Yep.
And that's what's happened over the last, decade and a half with the internet, I think.
Yeah.
And it's only going to multiply. I was telling a buddy this morning on a different podcast that, that this life that we're in is just, I'm not of the thought where like it's dying.
Yep.
I do think we need to be smart and strategic and well educated on how we answer certain questions. Not deceptive. We just need to like help educate everybody that's on the fence about rodeo as a whole. The extreme people on the other side of the fence, you're probably not going to convince, but everybody that's on the fence, that's just kind of like, oh, this is neat. If we present this in the right fashion, then, we can win over the hearts of anybody willing to, be open-minded about our way of life. But regardless, I guess, I don't know, I'm going on a rant just because I do think that I love this way of life. And I think we got a responsibility to represent it.
We see it in the rope horse futurity world because we get people that have real money come into the industry because they want to be a part of it. They want to get to go watch their horse, we get to show up. Like there's opportunities coming down the line in the rope horse deal where like it's not going to be somebody's going to go win $1.5 million or $2 million next year on a rope horse at the futurities. And hopefully it's me or Trevor. But people get to come just like getting to own. I don't know how it works in racing, but say some wealthy guy owns a race car and gets to go, watch his team, watch his car go. And it's like that in the roping. And I think as much as anything, Trevor and I sold a filly in Utah at the sale for $1.7 million. First rope horse these people have ever owned. Have got to know them. Didn't know them before the sale. They called and said, "Hey, if we buy this filly, will you keep training it?" I said, "Absolutely, I'd love to. I love this filly." And didn't know them. Met them for the first time. We hauled the filly home after they bought it. They come to the ranch there at Trevor's, and we got to meet them. And I've just got to see this side of the industry where like people just want to get involved and they want to be involved. And man, for them to come in there and realize these horses get treated like family, like the care given to them, and just how much they get, how much they're loved. And now they get trained on, like Clinton Anderson said, the best thing you can do for a horse is give it a good education, if you want it to have a good life. And so we train on them, and the training's hard, and they put in a lot of work, just like an athlete training and stuff. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and treats. Like they got to go out there and they have to put work in and wet saddle blankets. But back to what you were talking about, getting people involved that are a little bit outside the industry come in and realize the love and passion that you can have for horses and cattle and stuff. And in fact, the guy that bought the filly from us, he has a manufacturing company. He builds radiators, Radiator Ranch. Y'all could probably partner up.
Tell him to call me.
And so he had a buddy that sold him a cow, like a small, maybe it was like a cow or like 10 cows or something real small, and he put it on like 20 acres or something. I'm throwing numbers out there, but it started real small. He fell in love with cattle and ranching. He has went and bought a huge ranch, maybe a 10,000 acre ranch or something, and he just ranches now. And he's like, I didn't know nothing about cows. I just realized how much I loved it once I started doing it. Now I'm addicted to it. And now he's in the horse world. And I just think with our discussion and what we're talking about, there's people that know nothing about horses and cattle that if they got involved, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I love this. This is neat. And so for the sake you're talking about, I want more people to realize, like you were kind of aiming towards the welfare side, like the people that think that there needs to be some welfare regulations on what's going on in our industry are crazy, because we're all in it for how much we love the animals, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I've got horses that, I mean, they're family to me, you know, and the same way with the cattle back home. You know, I go back home and it's just a cow in a pasture, and you get to getting out there and checking them every day at 5 a.m. And when they're gone, you're like, dang, I got to go find my cow. It's just a cow, but after a while, it means more to you than that, you know?
Yeah.
I guess it's whatever you put your passion and your heart into becomes your livelihood. But I think if more people got involved, more people would love it, you know?
What's the news on just because I don't know a lot of going on, what's the news with the EHV stuff? Do you know what they're going to do with the NFR and everything going on?
I don't know. I
heard they were having a meeting yesterday.
Talk about getting people going crazy.
Oh my gosh.
To the point where it's like, my wife keeps up with it. She's like, did you read this? Did you read this? And I'm like, I'm not reading nothing because everybody's so up in arms right now. I don't even know what's real and what's not. You know, I don't know if people are blowing it out of proportion or like, oh my gosh, they're going to cancel NFR. You know, it's like, easy guys. We're 3 days into it.
I don't feel like they would cancel NFR, but maybe shut down some roads, taking some horses there.
100%.
Yeah, they might do that.
The last thing I heard was the horses that had went to these 4 different locations, and I only know 3 of the 4 that they listed, but those horses are maybe quarantined for 2 weeks and then have to be approved. Like they have to.
Dang, that's not bad.
Permit. No, I mean, like the general public's freaking out, but the people in charge are going to make the right decisions. You know, they understand that.
How many horses have died?
Last I heard, there was like 20, but I'm reading unofficial stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and this is also probably going to air as of, it's next week. So it'll be a minute before this goes out. But
and like I said, I don't know. I just know that everybody, granted, it's incredibly serious. There's no doubt, but the people in charge are going to make the right decisions. They know that there's people that make their living in those 10 days at NFR with their booth set up at the South Point. Like they understand that. They also understand the livelihood of the animals and how important it is to take care of them. And so everybody will step back. That's what I said. I said, give it a week. And the most important thing, like it'll die off, or it'll be a deal where it's like, hey guys, this really is this serious. We've got to start cutting fence and, blocking roads or whatever it is. So I don't know much about it. I hate to say I haven't paid attention because I have. Trevor and I quit we're not letting any horses on the place that weren't on there.
That's smart.
We're not going to any jackpots this week. Like our gates are closed. Our horses are staying there. Nothing's leaving. Nothing's coming in. And we'll see what happens in a week or two. But
yeah, that's what I'm doing. Not that my Radiator Ranch Winnebago buckers are... I don't take them out and about much anyway, but
I really think I think that everybody's taken enough precaution already that it's going to be all right come game time out there.
It's also just so different than humans. Like at the end of the day, horses don't have to travel. Like you guys, we didn't enter this weekend. All right, well, if everybody does that for 2 weeks, like that's going to really help.
Yeah, 100%.
It's still dangerous, but...
And we have a girl that works for us. She was at the BFA in Guthrie, and that's where a lot of it went down. And they canceled that, and she called, like, hey, what do I do with my horse? I'm like, take it to a quarantine location. It's got to stay there for a week or two, be quarantined, and, like, don't bring it back here, And... So just like that, I say that because it's a personal experience, but there's probably 1,000 scenarios of people doing
that exact same thing.
Yeah. It's like, hey, don't bring it back here. Don't spread it. Is her horse sick? Chances are it's not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my buddy, yesterday, bronc rider. He was getting on, and he's got a little 8 duplexes down in Huntsville. And a girl called him. They got it's a horse place, and she was like, "I was at that barrel race," and he was like, "What's your plan now?" He's like, "Well, I'm gonna take my horse back to my parent." You know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, all right, well,
Yeah, I think
most people are gonna do that.
Enough people are doing that I think they'll get it under control. I hope they do, and I hope it's here in 3 weeks. We're like, wow, that got shut down fast. That was, everybody was smart and intelligent about how they handled it, and I think they are. When you're talking about the caliber of horses that go to those events now,
you can't risk that much money.
It's easy to think
on one event.
People are the general public of Facebook doesn't probably think of it how it should be thought of, but I'm like, these people have so much money invested in these horses. Do you really think they're going to make stupid decisions with these horses?
Right.
They're going to be like, hey, I'm however many thousands deep in this horse. I'm going to do whatever it takes to take care of it.
Right.
And have that common respect I'm going to have respect for your horse because I know you're invested. I'm going to have respect for their horse. I know they're invested, let's everybody take care of it. And I think in no time, hopefully it'll be not a big deal.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on. We normally wrap up with life advice.
Man, I think I gave all mine earlier. Like I said, everything. I think everything good and great in my life's come from God, and I've learned that, like anything else in life, that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I would say my life would have to be a testimony of, being in a relentless pursuit of God's will, and then being around the right people, and the two go hand in hand, because I got around people that elevated my life, but those people, I don't give credit to those people. Just like Trevor, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, Trevor changed my life. No, God changed Trevor's life. Mine and Trevor's paths crossed, and God used Trevor.
Word.
And I'm thankful that I've got good people in my life, because I've ran around with heads too, and that's the results I got. Yeah. I did it when I was younger, and I made my fair share of bad decisions, and that's how I come to know the Lord. I've always had a conscience that would eat at me if I did something wrong, and I screwed up. And I remember went to a revival, and a calf roper was given the lesson that night, and he said, if you need a new heart to understand, like God has that for you, you can start over today. Well, what I did wasn't detrimental to my life, but it was detrimental to my conscience, because I had a dad that he believed in discipline. It wasn't like I got a stern talking to. I got in trouble, and so I had a conscience, and I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to get in trouble, and like I said, what was eating at me wasn't even, looking back, wasn't even that big of a deal, but it was eating at me. And when Marty Brock was the pastor's name, when he gave that message that night and said, you can start over, I remember thinking that night was like, you mean I can wipe this off my conscience? And I did that night, and it just, man, like I said, God's been good to me, and it's I guess he can do it for everybody, and gave me like I said, looking back, it seemed like a big deal. I was 17 years old, 18 years old at the time, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was it got me in the Lord's arms. And I guess back to what I was saying, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but I was hanging out with the wrong people, and thankfully, God can turn bad situations into good situations because I was running with the wrong people and I made the wrong decisions. And I was like, that life ain't for me. I need to do right. And so I've run with the wrong people and I've run with the right people, and I've got the wrong results and I've got the right results. And thankfully I found the Lord along the way, and with the help of the Lord and the right people around me, I'm not saying I'm successful. I'm saying that my life has been better than I could have imagined it would be. You know, my life for me. There's a lot of people who wouldn't consider what I'm doing or what I've done a successful life. They probably make way more money and do way cooler things, but by gosh, for a kid from Southwest Oklahoma that just wanted to punch cows, God's been good to me, you know?
Dang. Man, it's awesome to hear that. And, I mean, it's stuff I would have all assumed, but, yeah, it's neat to, I've become a big fan of Trev's. Like, I don't know. And, getting to the little stuff that we've worked together on, a few media deals a couple of years ago, and then the Kid Rock and Rodeo. But it's neat to see the age old adage come true of just like you become who you hang around, you know. And so like him being a God fearing man that works hard, and then that coming true for you is
The guy don't have bad days, and I say that like I've seen him have bad days. But I mean, like, he's unwavering, and I've tried to learn that, and I've gotten. I hate to say this, people take it out of context. I've got really good at losing, man. Like, the losses don't affect me. Like, I can say thank you. Hey, I've the last two futurities I went to, man, I haven't done any good. They were the last ones of the year, and I really didn't. I won a little bit, but not to what I expect of myself. And instead of being mad and beat down and losing my confidence, I caught myself like, man, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to win. Because when I showed up, I had a chance to win it because of the situation I'm in, the horses I have, and the ability He's given me to train these horses. I'm thankful to be there. And we were eating dinner the other night, and somebody's giving Trevor Larry D guy. Her and Trevor been tight forever. They have like the kind of relationship that Trevor and I have. And she was giving him a hard time, just kind of busting his chops about how many times he's messed up at high callback out of futurity. You know, he's won. I don't know how much he's won. There's only one association that even records the earnings right now, but somewhere deep down in Equistat, they have how much has been won amongst all the associations, not just one. And there's no telling how much he's won. And she was giving him a hard time, you know, about messing up. She's like, how many times have you messed up? Like, it's astonishing how many times you've messed up at high callback. And we were eating at the Beehive in Abilene, and he looked up and he said, we're still eating steak, aren't we? And I got thinking, I was like, that's the mentality. Like,
hell yeah.
Like, hey, we're still eating steak, aren't we? Like, yeah, I mean, there's bad days and there's good days, and there's days that we get our kicked, but hey,
well, people
we're
ask
still
me,
eating steak.
Being a podcaster, I get asked, what's your favorite guest? You know, like when I go on, other people like, well, what's your favorite? And this is 274. So this is obviously my new favorite.
Yeah, that's right.
Podcast 2. But but before this one, I tell people it's Trevor. Yeah. And it's because, I mean, there's a few reasons, but one of them is the mindset that you just described. Yeah. Because there's people that can been to, you know, one around at the circuit finals, or went to one NFR, and their head's so big they can't fit through the door. Yep. But he's got 26 gold buckles. Yeah, and if he wasn't wearing it, you wouldn't know it. Yep. And then you hear him talk about how he deals with failure, and it just makes even asking him when I've gone back and listened to that podcast I did with him a couple of times, and even just asking him about it, he had the hardest time answering some of my questions because because of the way I was even framing him, he just didn't understand that mindset.
Yeah.
And him being okay with a loss, or just the way he deals with a loss, I think is what set him apart and helped, because like he was able to have the short-term memory. It's not even short-term memory because he wouldn't forget it, just the way he dealt with it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it, but I appreciate it.
Thinking that, man, if you lost and you didn't throw the bat at the dugout, or
that means you didn't care.
Cut your ropes up, that you didn't care.
Right.
Or that you weren't a winner. Like you had to be.
You had to be
You
mad.
had to hate losing so much to be a
Correct.
winner. And
that's not how he was.
He was high call at Utah this year by so much that he really just, it didn't matter how his horse worked as long as his horse didn't rear out of the box or something crazy. He just had to make a clean run. Well, how easy is that for him? You know, it's like everybody's like, I remember the atmosphere that day was just like, who's going to win second?
Yeah.
You know, and he breaks the barrier and misses. And I'm sitting behind the box, and I said it felt like somebody shot me in the chest because I was like, starstruck. What just happened? He just had to make a clean run. He broke the barrier and missed. I don't care. I'm his biggest fan. We go back to the stall. I start unbooting his horse, helping him. And the first words he said after was, because he skimmed it over the steer's head. And what's crazy is even with the barrier, if he would have made a really good run, he could have still won it probably. And he skims it over, like cuts it a little thin. And his first words were, can you imagine how loud that was going to pop if it would have went on? You know, like he was like, can you imagine how much sauce that head loop was going to have if it would have went on? Like, that was his first deal. And I could have remembered thinking, dang, did you see that?
Yeah, that was a good catch. Spidey senses.
I remember thinking like, man, if I had that mentality, that would make me a loser. Like I was just okay with losing.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's like, it's not like that, because it's like everybody else around him that knows him. It's like, oh, Lee, next time he's high call, we don't have a chance. You know, like that won't happen again. And if it did happen again, it's not going to happen the next time. That's the mentality. And so,
well, the champion I got to spend the most time around, besides myself, was Jacobs Crawley, and he went to 10 NFRs in a row. When this one deal happened, he had already been a world champ on his fourth year. But anyway, so after that, it's like his 6th NFR, maybe his 7th, and one of the last rounds, if not the 10th round, a judge dropped a flag on him for his mark out. And the judge later apologized to him in person. Like, I don't think, regardless, like that night, it didn't affect him the way that it would have me. Like, it wasn't like the end of the world.
Yeah.
He just missed out on possibly his second world title and being in contention with it. Like, I don't remember exactly how the chips were going to fall, but even if it was just the average or a lot of money, whatever, but at the big one, and I remember like him just being different about his mindset. And then, I haven't told this one just because I feel bad saying this story, but like he had maybe gone to 8 NFRs and came here to Graham, which is an AMI rodeo, and bucked off. And he never bucks off. Like, he's just so consistent all the time. 100%. Very, anyway. And it was like, where do you want to go to dinner?
Yeah.
It was just like, and he shook it off, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, oh yeah, he's a world champ, and they have this unique thought process.
Yep.
And the same with Trevor. And anyway, I don't know. It's something that I try to. I was talking to an intern earlier today. This kid, he wants it. He's hungry, and he's been getting on a lot of bulls. And we went on a little streak here. Took him to JB's. He got on 5.
You didn't call me. I said, call me if there was any rank ones y'all needed road.
Oh, yeah. It was Tuesday. Yeah, we did talk. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I wrote them all.
Okay,
but then the very next morning, we went back to Stephenville, took him to Kai Hamilton's. He got on 2. We came back here yesterday evening. He got on 2. And then this morning, he got on. Like, he's been getting on. It was like I don't like somebody to not get their fill, you know? And, well, most of them he got bucked off of. Yeah. But he's been doing better. And I was like, dude, it's like a graph that's trending upwards. Like, whatever kind of graph you're looking at, sometimes, like, it might dip a little. If you focus in on this one part of the graph, like, it looks like it cratered down. But if you zoom out to, 5 years or whatever the timeline is on the bottom, on the x-axis or whatever, or y-axis, like, it's trending up. And so if you can keep yourself from getting depressed whenever that one little snippet drops down, if you can just, keep your mind right, it's going to trend up. But one little buck off can't, you rode these last 2 and then you bucked off 4. Well, yeah, you might have dipped on your success level and growth level, but if you keep the right attitude, and I don't know, I think that's what gives guys like Trevor and Jacob Crawley the longevity that they had, because how they deal with failure.
Champion mindset of looking forward, because we're talking about life, life advice. Like, if I would have listened to the guys that told me I couldn't train horses, or listened to the guys that said I would, never be able to rope good enough or whatever, if I would have listened to those guys at this point, I would have never got to this point. And like I said, I'm not saying I'm at the top of the mountain, because I'm not. I'm not even close to where I want to be or where I plan to be, but I'm smart enough to know now that I've seen guys get to the top, and they didn't get to the top hung up on the mistake they made back there. Mm-hmm. You got Trevor. It's an inside joke with Trevor. You're like, why'd you miss that one? If you asked him, what are you talking about? He'd like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. Or you're like, when Larry D was giving him a hard time, he's like, what, he's like, what do you mean? I missed it. High callback. Yeah. We're joking about it, but that's the mindset. Keep moving.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. I was at Kai's yesterday. Kai got on 3 and he rode 2, and the third one, and I said something about it. He was like, that bull's not even here. I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's right. I love it.
Cool. Well, you guys want to be in the horse business, look out for Relentless Remuda. Contact Miles Baker or Trevor. Call the secretary. Call Trevor.
Don't call Trevor. He doesn't answer his phone very well.
Yeah. Cool. Thank y'all for listening, watching Rodeo Time. We're on to the next one. Appreciate it, Miles.
Thank y'all. Thanks
pal.